This morning, we were reminded of how lucky we are to live at a time and in a place where we enjoy the privilege of saying yes to things. Not only that, but where we have the right to choose what we say yes to. In my talk, I want to show you that we need to protect those rights because they are under threat, and they're not always under threat by a visible dictator. So let's start with a very common concept. How many of you know what a private conversation is, right? When I say a private conversation, you have a very strong idea of what that is, right? It is a conversation that takes place between two people, right? You and your friend, you're having a private conversation. Who's had a private conversation in here, right? Yeah, every one of you. And no one else, right? It's very clear. Of course, that's how it is. But what about when you're having a private conversation on Facebook? Who's had a private conversation on Facebook? Who's had a private conversation on Facebook you wouldn't want up on that screen right now? Anyone? Some of you, right? So you might think it's the same, right? You're just having a conversation, it's just you and the friend that you're talking to. But you're wrong. Because for one thing, you're not in a public space like a park. You are actually in Facebook's home. And there is this weird stranger that wants to know what you're talking about, right? So when you have a private conversation on Facebook, here's how it actually works. You tell this weird stranger what you want to tell your friend, what you want him to relay to your friend. He takes notes about what you want to say, and he never forgets what you've said, right? And then he relays it to your friend. So when Facebook says something is private, what they really mean is that it is public. So in the novel 1984, George Orwell has a name for this. He calls it doublethink. So in order to understand what Facebook or Google or Twitter say when they say that something is private, we have to engage in doublethink. But you might say, Aral, this stranger, maybe he's a good guy, So let's find out what kind of person sets up a business like Facebook. So let's look at Mark Zuckerberg. In 2010, Mark gave an interview with The New Yorker in which he admitted to having had this instant messenger conversation a few years earlier, when he set up Facebook at Harvard in the early days, right? And here's how the conversation goes. This is on IM. All right? Zuckerberg says, yeah, so if you ever need any info about anyone at Harvard, just ask. I have over 4,000 emails, pictures, addresses. This was the early days, just 4,000, right? And his friend goes, wow, how did you manage that one? And Zuckerberg says, people just submitted it. I don't know why. They trust me. And here's the best bit. Dumb fucks. That's a great phrase, isn't it? Dumb fucks. Now, you might think, well, that was the early days, and the intervening years of widespread fame and fortune have probably made him more nuanced and contemplative in his views towards us, the people who use Facebook, right? Or you might be wrong. Recently, Facebook published a study that they ran on an emotional contagion. So what they were doing was they were taking some of your timelines, and for some of you, without telling you, without your consent, they would show you just positive posts from your friends. For some others, they would only show negative posts from your friends. And they wanted to see how that made you feel. Would you react differently if you only saw negative things happening in the world? Would that change how you reacted, how you interacted with Facebook? Now, this is quite an experiment to run, right? They were playing with your emotions. And when people heard of this, they said, oh, no, you shouldn't be doing this, Facebook. That's really bad. And they said, oh, we're really sorry. So Sheryl Sandberg apologized. But look at what they apologized for. She said this was part of ongoing research that companies do to test different products. In other words, this is just what we do. Their mistake was publishing it, right? They do this every day. And that's what it was. It was poorly communicated. And for that communication, we apologize. Not for what we did. And she ends it with, "We never meant to upset you." She could have continued, "Dumb fucks." And maybe she's right. Maybe we are. Because if you look at the coverage around this on the internet, should Facebook manipulate its users? I don't know. Maybe they should. But there's something even worse here. The misunderstanding that that is actually Facebook's business. That is what they do. They study us every day because the insight that they gain, the information they gain about us, is what they sell to their real customers. Do you pay Facebook anything? No. Do they make billions of dollars every year? There's a discrepancy here. How do they make those billions of dollars? From their real customers who pay them because they know so much about you that it's really, really valuable, right? So this is the same business that Facebook has, Twitter has, Google has. They all do the same thing. And in the past, in the early days of personal computers, if you installed an app on your computer and it didn't do what you thought it was really doing, but it also did other things like steal your information or use your information for purposes you didn't think it was being used for, we used to call it spyware. But that was very cloak and dagger. It was very easy to see who the bad guys were, right? Spyware 2.0 is all colors of the rainbow. Spyware 2.0 is the privacy dinosaur, the Facebook privacy dinosaur. Have you guys seen that pop up saying, "Hey, check your privacy settings"? Spyware 2.0 is kitten pictures on the internet. It's very hard to understand that this might be malware, but it is. It is malware that mines you for information. But even your information are just the atoms. We use that to create a profile of you. Because it's really important. I can't take one of you right now and put you into my lab and keep you locked up there 24/7 and run tests on you to understand how you work and how you tick. I can't do that. We have laws against kidnapping, right? I can't do that. But what if I could profile you? What if I could create a simulation of you? What if I knew so much about you that I didn't need your body? I had everything else about you that makes you who you are. Well, I can take that. I can put that into my lab, and I can study that 24/7 because your digital self is not protected by the same laws. This is one of the things that we really need to change. And you might say, okay, well, it's just Facebook, and maybe I'm okay with them knowing it. But the Snowden revelations have shown that after 9/11, these companies were sharing this information with governments as well. After 9/11, in the US, they formed the the Information Awareness Office with the stated aim of gaining total information awareness. Information about everything and everyone. This was their real logo. Guys, if you're going to set up an office to do this, don't make this your logo with an all-seeing eye on top of a pyramid shooting laser beams at the world. It scares people. So it scared people, and they said, oh, we were just kidding, we'll shut that down. But as we've seen last year, thanks to Edward Snowden, well, for one thing, the NSA really needs to hire a PowerPoint designer, but apart from that, they didn't shut it down. All of these companies that we trusted with our data were sharing that data with the government. Why? Because data that you actually volunteer to a third party is not protected by the same laws. It's easy for them, it's convenient for them, and it's cheap for them to go to this one place and say, give us all this information. And that's what they do. And Facebook says, sure, here's all that information. And it's not just apps, and it's not just services. Have you guys heard of the Internet of Things? Nest? Has anyone heard of the Nest smart thermostat? It's a thermostat that you put in your home, and it knows when you're home, and it knows when you're away, so it adjusts the temperature, right? And at the beginning of this year, so it basically knows when you're home and when you're not, at the beginning of this year, Google bought them for $3.2 billion. And this was in January. And they said, Nest is not going to share any of the information it has from your home with Google. They're just going to keep it still, even though they've been purchased. And then Google Nest, stay with me, it gets a bit confusing, bought Dropcam, which is a camera you put inside your home to watch your home, right? And then the CEO of Nest said, and just like Nest itself, we're not going to share any information with Google. So it's perfectly safe, right? It's perfectly fine. This was in June 20th to be precise. 4 days later, Nest to share user information with Google for the first time. They could have concluded that headline, dumb fucks, right? Because what were we doing? We were going, oh, the water's really nice in here. You know, it's getting warm. I like it. Unaware of the fact that the heat was continuing to be on. So the Internet of Things, unless you as an individual, as a person, have ownership and control, is the Internet of Things that spy on you in your own home. Have you heard of wearables? The quantified self, Fitbits, etc., right? The quantified self, if you don't have ownership and control of the information that it gathers, is the surveilled self. So that's the problem. But there are people who are working on creating alternatives to these. In the first sessions, you heard how important it is to say yes to things. If we are to protect our freedom to say yes to things that matter, yes to things that make the world better, we also have to use a very strong word, no, to things that make the world not so good. So we have a social enterprise called Indie. It stands for independent. It stands for the individual. And we're making alternatives. Today, here's your only alternative. Let's say that this is Laura, and Laura has a picture that she wants to share on all of her various devices. How would you do that today? You would have to use a cloud service, right? You would have to have a cloud somewhere, and you would have to send that photo up to a stranger, basically, who then sends it to your other devices. That's how Dropbox works today. That's how Facebook works. And that's how Google works today. So you have to share with a stranger in order to just have it on all of your devices. Now, that, of course, has the creepy person in the middle problem, right? So if we get rid of that weird stranger that we have to share with, we also have to get rid of the cloud, which means that today we are back at square one, right? We don't have our photos on all of our devices. Okay, what do we do? It's not the only way. So here's how we're fixing this. Here's how we're solving this at Indie. So there's Laura with her photo, and there are her other devices. We have something called Pulse, which is a free and open piece of software. And unlike a cloud, it doesn't just live in one place. It lives on all of your devices. So there isn't a centralized place, a stranger that you have to trust. And the way it works is, once the devices have found each other, they connect directly to one another. And then if you want to share that photo on your phone, your tablet, your computers, then you can do that directly without also sharing it with a stranger. Do you see how that's different? But Pulse today is a low-level technical solution. You need to have some technical knowledge to use it. What if you don't? And what if you don't just want to share stuff with your devices? What if you want to also share with other people? So Pulse is available now, and you can use it today to replace Dropbox if you want to, if you have technical knowledge. But let's say you want to share with your friends as well. So there's Laura again. She has her photo on her computer. And on the other side, we have Joe. So today, again, normally you would share through Facebook, right? You'd upload your photo to Facebook, and then Joe would be able to see it. How can we do this differently? So with what we're doing, you would go to Indie, the website, right? Just like you would go to Facebook. And you would search Joe would search for Laura, right? And once she's found Laura, she would send Laura a friend request, which would go directly to her computer. And if Laura says, yes, I want to be friends with Joe, okay, cool. At that point, we would not need Indie anymore. There would be a direct connection between the two computers. So what Indie has really done is introduced you. Has said, hey, Joe, here's Laura. Now you guys connect. Now you talk to one another. And then Joe can send Laura the photo, right? So Indie connects you using Pulse and Heartbeat on your computers, but Indie then steps out of the way. so you connect directly to each other. Compare that to Facebook, where you always have to go to Facebook, and that weird stranger has always got to know what you're uploading to it. So that, on Indie, we run something called Waystone. Again, everything we do is free and open. So you don't have to trust us. If someone tells you to trust them, then there's probably a problem. They should be designing things so you don't have to trust them. Waystone, again, is free and open. So if you don't want to go to Indie, you can set up your own website, and you can run that there. So people can go there to meet each other, right? You don't have to trust us, and that should be our criterion for who we trust and who we don't trust. So that's like a pub that you go to, and you just meet each other, and you exchange numbers. And that's in private pre-alpha right now. So that's going to start on December 10th. We're also, all of this is going towards building devices so that we can replace the devices that spy on you. Our first big goal is to build a phone, a beautiful phone that doesn't spy on you. So this is one of the first times that we're actually showing you photos of our current iteration of the phone. A very simple, beautiful phone that doesn't spy on you, that uses Waystone, that uses heartbeat, that uses pulse that you saw to not spy on you. And that's just one product. This is an area of technology that I call independent technology, and we need many, many more such products. Products that say no to the current system of treating you like livestock, that treat us like quarries to be mined. And if we can create these alternatives that treat you as human beings, that give you ownership and control, then we can remove those weird strangers from the middle, and we can give people safe spaces to start out in, spaces that are private by default, where you get the right to choose what you share and what you keep to yourself. And if we can do that, then we can create a future where we protect our freedom to say yes and our freedom to say no, as well as all of our other fundamental freedoms and our human rights. And in essence, what we're working towards, really, in all of this, is to create a future where we protect democracy itself. And I hope you will join me in that mission. Thank you.